Gulf States Newsroom. This is the Gulf States Gumbo, your weekly serving of stories from Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. I'm economic mobility reporter Stephan Bisaha, chopping it up this week. And quick warning before we get started. Today's episode is about the death penalty and includes talk about recent executions and methods. And the reason we're talking about the death penalty is that there's a lot happening with it right now. It's a priority of the Trump administration. And the big conversation at the moment is methods of execution. Alabama recently pioneered a new method, and the Deep South remains an epicenter for the death penalty. Here to talk with me about all of this is our criminal justice reporter, Kat Stromquist. Kat, thanks for being with me.
Hi, Stephen.
So what are the different methods of execution states are using today?
So we've got firing squad, electrocution, lethal injection, and lethal or nitrogen gas.
And that last one, nitrogen gas, that has kind of become synonymous with executions in the Deep South. I mean, what makes nitrogen gas different than those other methods?
So this is something kind of new. It's legal in all 3 states in our region, plus Arkansas and Oklahoma. They strap a gas mask over the face of the person being executed when they breathe pure nitrogen. States are calling what happens nitrogen hypoxia, which means low levels of oxygen in body tissues. There's some concern about whether this could be inhumane. Advocates are saying that this is suffocation, and experts are saying that this could potentially cause, pretty severe psychological distress. I recently personally witnessed a nitrogen gas execution on a reporting trip to Alabama. It was not instantaneous. It lasted, seemed to last for several minutes, with the person being executed, Mr. Gregory Hunt, shaking. He raised his head. Alabama's prisons chief told us that these are involuntary body movement, and that's what they're expecting with this method of execution.
Now, of the other 2 methods you mentioned, firing squad is pretty rare, though it was just twice used in South Carolina. The other is lethal injection, and I think that's what most people imagine when they think of the death penalty. How did lethal injection become so common in these cases?
Well, I asked Corinna Barrett Lain about that. It's the subject of her new book, Secrets of the Killing State. Here's the conversation I had with her about how and also why lethal injection came into use.
Well, I'm a death penalty researcher, and I kept seeing and reading about these botched executions, and that gave rise to a question. Why are states so bad at this? We know how to put pets down. We know how physician-assisted suicide works. So why are states so breathtakingly bad at lethal injection?
And you give these accounts of botched executions by lethal injection across the country, which I think are really interesting. And that includes botched executions in Alabama. You also spend a lot of time diving into the qualifications of prison staff. Is it that corrections and prison staff, are they trying to get this wrong?
People often ask me that when they read the book. They're like, are they trying to get this wrong? It's hard to attribute intent as a whole. You have a variety of actors across a variety of states. It's possible that some of them are. I mean, it's possible. We see in legislative hearings some of the legislators saying, no, I don't want to do this. I want them to feel pain. But I think the more prevalent thing that is happening here is just a profound indifference. And I think that comes with the fact that we are asking people to kill other people as part of their job. And it turns out that asking them to care about how that is done is asking too much.
So that actually kind of brings me to my next question. There's this theme that keeps coming up throughout the book. You argue that lethal injection came about as the main way states execute people because it provides this appearance of humaneness, though, of course, it doesn't always work out that way. Why is that appearance so important to states?
It's important because it hides the violence. It's not just the appearance of humaneness. It's that lethal injection hides the violence of state killing. And it's important to remember that until the body is ready to give up life on its own, until a person is naturally ready to die, it requires physical force to end life. It requires violence. So it might be a car accident. It could be a homicide. It could be an execution. But ending life before the body is ready requires violence. And what's special about lethal injection is that lethal injection hides the violence. And that's a massive advantage for the executing state, right? It's out of sight, out of mind. It makes the death penalty more of an idea that people can agree with or disagree with. Most support for the death penalty is support in the abstract. Lethal injection keeps the death penalty abstract. It allows the political uses of the death penalty to flourish while hiding the brutality that executions entail.
And then it seems like the participation of doctors maybe would help, but doctors are in sort of a double bind about participating in executions, right?
They are in a double bind in the sense that the age-old Hippocratic Oath tells them do no harm. But at the same time, they know that without their participation, you have extremely underqualified people trying to do this. And so that is the double bind. But the thing is, what we are asking when we ask a medical professional to help is, as one doctor explained, it's like asking a lifeguard to help someone drown better. This is not what they went into the profession to do. It's so fundamentally at odds with the entire profession, which is the healing profession, the saving profession. It is not the killing profession.
So here in the South, we're beginning to execute people with nitrogen gas. You touch on this a little in your book, but do you think the same kinds of problems as with lethal injection could be in play?
Absolutely. What we see with nitrogen gas is like history repeating itself. Oklahoma was the first state to adopt nitrogen gas, even though Alabama is the first to actually use it. But Oklahoma adopted nitrogen gas based on a 14-page, double-spaced, unpublished report by 3 local college professors, none of whom had any scientific or medical background. And one of them later said, well, we couldn't get any medical professionals to help us, so we just did the best we could. And, so we see the same rollout as in there's no science behind this. We see the same rollout as in the Department of Corrections directors, prison personnel are coming out afterwards saying, oh, it was textbook. It was exactly what we expected. This went right. It absolutely did not. So we see the same thing there. And then we even see the same with producers of natural gas, which make, gas for fire extinguishers and children's balloons at parties. And they're also saying, we don't want anything to do with this. So we see the supply side problems already starting to emerge.
Wow. This and the death penalty is a very serious subject. But one thing I appreciated about this book is that it is written in a very approachable style, and it's even sometimes funny. What are you hoping that people take away from this?
Kat, I'm so happy that you appreciated that point because it's a dark topic. I know that. And I do use levity in the writing to make it, a little more readable and interesting. And so I appreciate that. I think it would be hard to walk away from reading this book and think that lethal injection is basically humane execution method that just goes wrong from time to time for reasons we don't quite understand. No, that's not it at all. I think it would also be hard to walk away from reading this book and to think that states can be trusted to kill at all. And then there's the question, which I talk about in the epilogue, of what do we do about the fact that so often by the time we get to an execution, this person, is 17, 20 years away from their crime. And the person who did that terrible thing, they're not there anymore. It's a frail old man being wheeled in, to the execution chamber in a wheelchair. Or it's somebody who started a prison ministry. And so, studying executions really gave me, and I hope will give readers, a sense of who these people are at the end. Not who they were in their worst moment, not who they were at the crime or the trial, but who are these people that we're actually executing? And what effect does that have on the people that are asked to kill in the state's name?
Well, that was fascinating. Thanks so much for talking with me.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on, Kat. It was a pleasure.
This is the Gulf States Gumbo. I'm Stephan Bisaha, here with criminal justice reporter Kat Stromquist. And Kat, we just heard your conversation with Corinna Barrett Lain about her new book, Secrets of the Killing State. And what really stood out to me is what she said about how asking someone to both kill someone else is part of their job and asking them to care about the well-being of the person that they're executing is just too much. Could you dig a little further into why that sometimes leads to botched executions?
Yeah, so according to the research she lays out, we really like to imagine that it's doctors doing all this work, when many times it just isn't that way. It's people who work at the prison or people who have some medical experience, like an EMT or phlebotomist. There's also concern about how some of the drugs used for lethal injection even work, whether, for example, they can actually make it so you don't feel pain. So, the main argument here is that these methods were designed for the comfort of the viewers of the execution and not actually the person being executed.
And that's the main argument by people that are opposed to these methods.
Right. Another researcher I talked to, talking about some of the historical context here, brought in the electric chair, which isn't used all that often anymore. But, those executions were very, very uncomfortable for viewers. There were sights and smells that, were distressing for people who are watching. Lethal injection brought this sort of medical veneer over executions. But some experts are saying that the reality just does not really live up to that.
Kat, I know this is a really difficult subject, so thank you so much for all your reporting on this.
I appreciate that. Always good to talk to you, Stephan.
This week's show is hosted by me, Stephan Bisaha, and is cooked up by the Gulf States Newsroom team. Our theme music is by DJ Supreme. Special thanks to our partner stations WBHM, Mississippi Public Broadcasting, WWNO, and WRKF. You can find us in your podcast feeds every Friday. Look us up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to stir your roux.